Got it.
Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to As the Expert with yours truly, Dr. G. It's a beautiful afternoon where I am anyway. And I want to say thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us today, it is Sunday, March 10th, and we're already in the third month of the year already, 2024. So really, really fantastic. I'm just excited to have this amazing physician with me on and in the conversation we're going to have. And this came about because I was thinking about my life as a caregiver. And I was sharing with somebody that never in a million years did I imagine that I would be in a role where I have the privilege, not, don't get me wrong, of being a parent and who's seen her amazing children grow up each and every day. Yet it comes a time where you realize that where you might have loved the opportunity to just let them go and really cut the umbilical cord completely. Sometimes in certain individuals, we're unable to do that. And so we want to just be able to remind you, if you're listening to me, that if you're in the role of a caregiver and you have to be there for a while, there is a need to think about your own health. And that's really, really one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation because the stress level, and you may notice some season stuff like where, especially when you're trying to figure some things out, the stress level may be tremendous. And I have walked that journey. And thankfully, because I have an amazing faith community, my church family has been incredible. Obviously, my immediate family has been incredible. My support group family has been incredible. I think that I have an opportunity to talk each and every day. Each and every time that I come on these programs and I'm speaking, it's a way of therapy for me. So I get to identify the fact that me vocalizing the feelings that I'm having is my way. I'm not by any means, disclaimer, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I am just a mom who just have walked a journey of caring for three amazing people for 25 years. And so with that, uh, and caring for somebody who continuously requires me to be his voice, has enabled me to have some real life experiences. And so when I talk, it's coming from my N of one, which is me. So I don't speak to about everybody. I'll let the professionals do it. But I get to be connected with professionals when I meet them and I see someone who really is gifted and talented in their skill. I want them to come on here and share. And so today I have Dr. Bolanle Akinrobi, who is going to be talking to us about caring for the caregiver, right? I just told her that my theme was be intentional. Mental health basics, really, really important. And so she's going to be talking to us a little bit about her work and how we as caregivers really could just ensure that we are able to take a deep breath and make sure we're breathing. So Dr. Akinrobi is a board certified residency trained physician in the field of psychiatry. She's devoted to the treatment of brain and mental health conditions. She's the founder and CEO at Bright Mind MD, a private psychiatry practice based here in New Jersey, where together with her team, she offers unique and whole person approach to treatment. What I love about it is about her is her treatment recommendations follow a holistic model. And if you've talked to me, you realize that an advocate of really looking at everything holistically. I don't think one size fit all. And so we'll make disclaimers here that if you're, whatever she's presenting here is not by any means saying that this is what you must do. This is just so that you are educated to make decisions. Dr. Bolanle, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your willingness to do this program with me. This year, I really wanted to just start to look at advocacy in terms of taking care of self and speaking out for others. So I'm so grateful that you can be here today and talk to us about mental health and the importance of being intentional for caregivers. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'll just release you to share.
Thank you so very much, Dr. G. And I'm glad that you are giving me this opportunity to share with some of us today. I'm a psychiatrist, as you said, and I love the introduction, by the way. It feels bigger than me, but thank you. But I'm speaking today. I want to, you said something about being a mom, and the experience that you have had as a mom, also as a mom of someone with special needs and having to care for them. I would say that it's amazing. It's a big one. It's not one to undermine in the care of this person because yes, I am a professional. I have never cared personally, in my home for another human with these specific needs. And so what I'm sharing has its own advantage from, a professional and study, but what you bring to it as someone who's actually been at that forefront is invaluable. And I would never, ever underestimate that. And I think it's bringing those two perspectives together that really, hopefully, with the goal of caring for the individual, but also their caregivers is what I think makes the magic. So thank you for allowing me to speak today. And everyone here today, I wanted to begin by saying that a lot of what I'm sharing today is probably going to be simple. They're probably things you've heard before. But we all know that in our day to day, we often forget to do the simple things. And the simple things sometimes is where the magic lies in accomplishing many different things. So, and that's not different for this case. So, some of what I'm saying, you've probably heard it before, but I'm hoping that by getting us together today and sharing about it, we will give ourselves reminders to do the things that are important in caring for ourselves. So thank you for listening, and I welcome questions. If there are things you're thinking about that you'd like us to touch on today, I will ask that we put it in the comment section. Even if I'm not able to address it right away, we'll have time, hopefully, to discuss questions that you have in your mind or things that we can discuss about a bit more in detail. So getting right into it, all right. So I like to begin by, defining what is mental health. Um, Mental health refers to a person's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And it encompasses various aspects of life, such as thoughts, feelings, and behavior. It is a dynamic state that can change over time from time to time. And I like to highlight that it's not solely the absence of mental disorders or illnesses. And the reason that I emphasize this is because when we talk about mental health and wellness, many of us think that, well, I don't have a diagnosable disease. I don't have a diagnosable disorder like, major depression, anxiety, whatever. So it means I'm in a mental, I have great mental health. However, mental health, if we think about how we've defined it, exists on a spectrum. It is dynamic. It's influenced by different aspects. It means that at any point in time, as part of our health, we may be in varying states of mental health, right? Emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It could be great. It could be, not so great. It could be, even worse than that. And touching on intentionality. So I haven't, thinking about mental health in the way that I've just described it, being intentional about it then involves making a conscious and purposeful effort to prioritize and promote one's psychological well-being. So not just the psychological, but also social and emotional, right? The big basket. It means we're actively engaging in practices and behaviors that contribute to wellness, resilience, and a positive state of mind. And it also emphasizes proactive steps and thoughtful choices, again, to foster balance, cope with stress, and enhance overall life satisfaction. And why is this particularly important, right, in this setting? I wanted to, touch briefly on autism spectrum disorders, right? And because this is a particular group of caregivers that is just having a discussion today and talking about it, I won't belabor this point, but we do know that individuals with ASD are unique, and understanding their specific needs is essential for effective caregiving. I would buttress this by saying that if you've met one individual with autism, you've met one individual with autism. It's not one where every single individual who has autism looks like the other person or has similar needs as the other person. Each person is unique in their presentation because autism spectrum exists literally on a spectrum. And so each person will be unique. And that means that the needs of each individual will be tailored to them specifically. Why that then becomes important is that as a caregiver of such an individual, each time you are charting a new course, you are creating a new path. There's no beaten path, so to speak, to follow. And when that's happening, it means that these unique challenges that is involved in caring for this individual can impact the mental well-being of the caregivers. And being that caregivers are, typically if they're family members, usually, it means you love this person, you care for them, and a lot of effort and time and emotion goes into making sure that this individual is well cared for and balanced. And what that comes to often is that we forget ourselves, the caregiver. We're not having, either because we don't have time or we're tired or we're exhausted. There is not a lot of care that is taken in making sure that the caregiver themselves are well taken care of. And why is it important to care for someone? To care for the caregiver, right? We're focusing on our caregivers today. Why is it important to care for the caregivers and nurture mental health well-being? It's because your mental health, specifically as a caregiver, impacts your ability to provide the best care for your loved one who has autism spectrum disorder. And a well-supported caregiver contributes to a healthier and more stable environment for the individual with ASD. So I'm just going to reiterate it and saying that even though the focus is on caring for the person, you do a better job if you care for yourself. If you are in the best mental state, if you're very well cared for, then you are ultimately doing right by the individual you're caring for, because you are primed and optimized to care for that person. So I put this fun slide in here to remind us of what happens in the airlines when we all get on a flight where we're told to put our own oxygen mask on first. Caring for our mental health as caregivers means that we are putting on our own oxygen mask first, and by doing that, it allows us to care really, to be primed and optimal to care for the person who is in our care. So getting right into it, again, I mentioned some of the strategies I'm going to share will be simple things that you've heard before, but I want to reiterate them today because our goal is to remind ourselves of what's needed to do this and to do it intentionally, right? Making time, prioritizing to do it. The first thing I will talk about today is for the caregiver is to prioritize self-care. What do I mean by that? It means making self-care a non-negotiable part of your routine. I want to highlight today that when we see self-care talked about in social media and places, people think it means going to a spa, getting your nails done, all of those activities, which if we're honest with ourselves as caregivers, it might be just another chore, right? If you're engrossed in taking care of this another human being, whether it's a parent or a relative or in other capacity, you don't want another chore. Caring for yourself may not mean, making time, scheduling appointments to these other things. Although they are helpful, it's not what really self-care means. Self-care really points to an activity that you actually enjoy, that is not a burden, and that gives you relief. And to make it simple or applicable to us today, I think of it as something as simple as delegating time for you, time for the individual. I encourage not just caregivers of people with ASD, but in general, a lot of moms, because a lot of moms do run themselves ragged caring for their children and not really having time to do that for themselves. So I recommend and encourage it, whatever time that you think you can squeeze out, where it can be time that's quiet and dedicated to yourself, to do things, other things that I'm going to be talking about as part of self-care. So I wanted to ask, and I don't know if we have participation here today, but does anyone can anyone think right now or write about, is there a time of day, like 30 minutes, that you can dedicate to just you uninterrupted? And I don't even know if this is reasonable, feasible to ask, but I like to ask people to type it out in the comments if they can. Whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, what time do you think, every day? Say it doesn't, 20 minutes that you can find for you. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I would say so. I have found that morning before 6 a.m. is the time that I am most clear-minded. And I'm able to at least devote some time to myself. And I don't want to get ahead of yourself, but somebody shared some strategy for me that seems to have helped. Um, so
Yes.
maybe that
Okay.
question will come up later. So let me be quiet.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you. Okay. So Dr. G said morning. Addie said morning. Rosie said morning. Excellent. Thank you. And that's similar for me as well. As a mom, is finding. Yes, Amarachi. Thank you. She said. The person said morning as well. So this is a common theme. And morning is amazing for a lot of people. And if you like, you can type in the chat box as well. Why mornings? What's special about morning? I'll share mine. But if people want to share as well, that'd be good. And if you can even designate a specific time, it'd be interesting to see what the trend is as well. But as we're waiting for people to type in, I would say that mornings are oftentimes before our ward, whether, this individual that we are the children that we care for, the individuals with ASD that we care for, perhaps before they wake up at a certain time, is probably the best chances a lot of people get at having quiet time. And so, what are we going to be doing in that quiet time? For each person, 5 to 6 a.m. Yeah, that's around my time as well. 5:30, 5 a.m. It's time to dedicate to checking in with oneself. It's time to dedicate to activities of self-care that are actually meaningful. I like and I recommend for a lot of people, that's time where you do meditation, prayer for personal faith, just have time, with your maker, with the divine, discussing things that have happened, reviewing, setting intentions for the day. And also, if you want to multitask, because I'm big on multitasking, some people do this while walking. So they do like a prayer walk so that you're knocking out your physical exercise and activity while you're walking, or doing something on the treadmill, but also taking the time for you. So I feel, I highly recommend this. I use this myself as an activity of self-care. It's time where no one's interrupting you. It's time where no one's talking to you. It's time where you can really focus on you for a few minutes in the morning. Oh, Dr. G was just saying, yep, prayer meditation. Okay. So that's a big aspect of self-care. And for people who practice this, and I practice this myself, I can testify that it starts your day, because once you've had time to dedicate that, to look at you, to commit yourself, whether, to God or to the divine, or to meditate and do something to regulate yourself before the day starts. No matter what happens in the day, you feel better prepared, you feel better equipped to handle it. So I would say, as far as mental health goes, prioritizing this time in the morning is a big one. And if you want to add as part of self-care activities that you enjoy, those are the things that everyone talks about. Those are great as well, but I found nothing better than this dedicated time in the morning to self-review and meditate and pray, and also to do exercise, actually, as a way to start the day. Another way that we can be intentional about our mental health is to learn to establish boundaries. Establishing boundaries means setting up for yourself what's acceptable, what you can do, being honest with yourself about what you have capacity for. And this floats, boundaries is a whole discussion on its own that floats into different aspects. But for our purposes today, I'm looking at boundaries as being able to set boundaries between caregiving responsibilities as well as your personal time, right? The people we care for, they have needs every day. We've already established that we care for them best by caring for ourselves, but we also know that the needs are always there. And there would be a temptation to just care and caregive without any breaks from day to day and week to week. And what that results in is we're not caring for ourselves. And oftentimes, by the time we notice it, we've really, on that spectrum of mental well-being, we've fallen off the edge, or we're really suffering or struggling or not centered within ourselves. So learning to remind ourselves to establish boundaries. Yes, I'm caring for this person, but I also will do a better job if I'm caring for me. And so, not like making it non-negotiable to have personal time to rejuvenate and to care for yourself. Also learning to say no, right, to some things that are out of capacity for us. This could be at work, this could be in the community, this could be in our caregiving responsibilities as well. But being honest with ourselves to define what we have capacity for. And again, this is dynamic. What you have capacity for today may be different from what you have capacity for tomorrow. So having that conversation with yourself and being comfortable saying no when necessary, because a lot of people feel guilt about saying no to things that stretch them out of capacity. But then when you stretch out of capacity, you're not as functional. You do not function at your best. You're not giving your best at all times. So I would say one big way to guard your mental health and to be intentional about mental wellness and well-being is learning boundaries. If anyone has any questions about that, please go ahead and ask in the comments. I'll be checking. Okay. So another way that we okay, so Ms. Patricia said, yeah, this is something I'm working on, saying no. It takes practice, right? Some people are better at saying no than others, but it is a skill. And the more we learn to be honest, and the more we understand why we're saying no when we say no, the easier it will get. Because when we say no just to say no, perhaps there will be guilt. But if we understand why we say no when we say no and what we're protecting, if it again is with intention, it's not saying no to say no, it's saying, this is how much gas I have in my tank. I need this extra time or this extra resource to refill. And so I'm going to say no to this other thing until I can fill my tank. This is why I'm saying no. That helps with the guilt when you're setting your boundaries, whether in your personal life or at work. Dr. G, you raised your hand. Did you have a comment question?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for that because I was having a conversation with somebody earlier today about boundaries and what does that look like. I think maybe part of the struggle sometimes we have is we know there are some people that we look up to who are the ones asking us to do X, Y, and Z. And so when it's those people, we struggle with being able to tell them no. What advice would you give in terms of the balance in being able to in disclosing the why? Because sometimes there's a reason why we some people feel ashamed saying that I'm right now overwhelmed, using the word overwhelmed. That's why I have to say no. And if, especially when it's to somebody of authority. And so it's a really twofold comment. How do we let those people that we know we struggle with, particularly because they're maybe a boss or a leader, right? And then versus also the balancing part of being able to tell them that I can't do it because it's a lot going on.
Sure. Well, that's a comprehensive question to look at. Is so I'm thinking here this is possibly someone we're not comfortable disclosing to, that we have this other responsibility.
Yeah.
And so
Especially
go
in the
ahead.
work, especially in the
Sure.
workplace, right? Sometimes we struggle letting them know that, hey, maybe I have a child with special needs, and therefore they're extra. So when there's the demand that, hey, can you stay extra? I'm struggling, I can't, right? So how do you, because you just don't want quote unquote your business out there, how do we set those boundaries in that setting? I mean,
Hmm. That's okay. So I would approach this as so if we do not want to disclose, I'm first I'm going to ask why what is motivating the non-disclosure, right?
right.
Because we tell our coworkers many different things about ourselves all the time, and I feel like this is important information, and so I will ask why do I not want to disclose? Is it what's behind, what's motivating the non-disclosure? Because it's a when we have a person with special needs in our lives, it's a pretty big and important and shiny part of our lives that we cannot ignore. And so if we disclose anything at all and we're not wanting to disclose this one thing, I will ask what's the motivation behind that? Is it shame? Is it fear of retribution? And maybe we need to look at that a little bit. I'll leave that there. But in terms of setting boundaries, even if we do not disclose, right, we all have different levels of comfort. Um, we do need to understand why we're saying no. I think that for a lot of questions, when we understand why, it helps us with overcoming the resistance we have in saying no. And as I was saying earlier, if I know that this is how much capacity I have, right? So even if you do not want to say I'm overwhelmed right now, we all still can say vaguely, I have some commitments right now, right? It's a commitment. I mean, this is a big commitment, but even if we're not telling what that commitment is, if we understand within ourselves, I have XYZ commitments and I've already delegated XYZ amount of my time. I do not have the additional time right now to devote to something else, but maybe in a couple of weeks, I will have additional opening, right? We can, so it's not a full no. I find that a lot of people feel more comfortable with no, but or a partial no. So it's not a no, it's a not now. Um, but I can become available later. I think that that could be a compromise for someone who's reluctant to say no. It takes practice to get used to saying no. There's a lot of guilt that people have about saying I have needs too, right? And part of it is reminding ourselves to learn that we have needs. We have needs, and it's okay to have needs, and we deserve to have our needs met too. We're worthy of having our own needs met. And so when we first understand that within ourselves and why we're saying no, it becomes easy to translate that into a conversation with either a superior or person of authority about why we cannot do what they're asking of us now. So maybe I would recommend not now. I'm sorry, it's not a no, it's maybe later. Not now, maybe later. And that feels a little less intense, I think, for all parties. Is that helpful? Do you think? Feedback?
Yeah, no, I think I love that. I love where you went with it saying it's not a no, it's a not now, especially whether it's a neurotypical child that you have or not. Maybe somebody's asking you to do coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you know that's when they get back from school, right? Or maybe those happy hours that the rest of your coworkers are going to and they keep asking you and you're like, boundaries, I can't. So I love that when you say they say no, it's not a no. It's a maybe not now, maybe later.
Yeah,
I love that.
maybe later. Right, that's right. I have commitments right now. Now, even if you don't tell them what the commitment is, at least most people understand. I have another commitment at 4. Yes, okay. All right. So I have other commitments. That's right. So even if you're not telling them where you're going, it's I have another commitment at 4. And my calendar is already scheduled. Even if I'm not telling you what it's scheduled for, I have, something else on my schedule, and it's a somewhat less intense way of getting around that. Okay. So moving on in the slides, another thing to do to become more intentional about our mental health is an adoption of a healthy lifestyle. We all know we should do this. We all have general ideas that we should be doing that, but it's even more important as someone who's a caregiver to make this healthy lifestyle choices. And it's going along the lines of, again, putting your own oxygen mask on first. If we adopt a healthy lifestyle, we're more physically active, we're healthier, and so again, we're physically positioned to be better. And we know that when we're physically well, we're more mentally well as well. I'm not sure if I'm making that connection well, but being physically healthy supports mental health as well. And the times that we dedicate to physical activity, in addition to being beneficial for mental health, for a lot of people, it's time to again clear their heads, clear their minds, resets the computer, so to speak, our brain. So physical activity helps mental health, but it's also in and of itself an activity of intentionally supporting mental health as well. So, and that includes, proper nutrition, exercise, sufficient sleep. And if we are practicing that, we're also more likely to be able to transfer some of these skills to our ward, right? The person we're caring for who has additional needs. So maybe, it's an activity, they can do with us. I talked about multitasking earlier, which means like doing walks while doing your prayer, meditation in the morning. So that's your you time. But if you're doing the nutrition, the exercise and all that stuff, this is something you can share with your ward as well. It doesn't have to be, by yourself, but doing that supports mental health as well, and that's data backed. Like people with anxiety, for example, even a mental health diagnosis like anxiety, when they run regularly, it reduces their overall anxiety, like with or without medications. So um, again, physical movement, physical activity doesn't have to be going to the gym. It can be as simple as going up and down the steps in your home. It can be doing laps around your dining table. Just go around. I do that sometimes when I can't get out. I have a toddler and they love being chased, and we just do laps over and over around the dining table until I'm feeling dizzy. So there we can get creative about how we move. It's playing a song on TV and dancing, whatever your movement is. Um, Commit to one, think of one, and do that regularly as part of your physical movement and activity, nutrition and all that. So I won't belabor that. I'm going to move on from that topic. um Another is a way of supporting our mental health intentionally is incorporating mindfulness practices. There are several mindfulness practices out there. Pick one or two that you like or you feel is easily accessible to you. And doing that practice daily supports mental health and it helps manage stress. There are many persons of faith that are here or that we engage with. So people ask, is prayer? Yes, prayer is a valid a method of that. Ooh, what happened with my slide? Okay. Is it back? Yes, it's back. Okay. Yes. So prayer is one way to do it. Deep breathing exercises, meditation, it helps us stay present and not get trapped in our mind and all of the demands and tasks of the day. It helps us manage stress. And there is data actually where people are monitored doing some of these activities and looking at their heart rate and their breathing rates, and it shows that you can really slow down your heart rate when doing some of these activities. They work best when you do them regularly, not randomly here and there. So if you're going to pick an activity, pick something you really can connect to and that you can do on a consistent basis. That's why it's called a practice. It's not a do random, it's a practice. So you can incorporate that as part of your mornings or the start of your day. Okay, there we are. I'm going to then talk about connections. Again, we all know this, but I'm highlighting it because we often forget. Caring for an individual with ASD takes a lot of physical effort, a lot of things to do, a lot of appointments, a lot of helping. And we can we cannot underestimate how important it is to lean on our network. And our networks can be, in varying places, but friends and family I'll talk about. So social connections, this just in terms of having people to talk to and not isolating. I know a lot of people who are caregivers tend to isolate because they're so consumed by the work involved in caring for their person. And so then people just get lost and they find that they're alone. They call people less and less. When people call them, they're not responding to calls, and then people stop calling. And so this isolation makes mental wellness worse for the caregiver and then also for the individual they're caring for. Because again, if you're caring for someone and you're not well, excuse me, I have a bit of a cold, so I apologize for clearing my throat so often. But when we're not maintaining our social connections and we're not mentally well, then it affects the person that we're caring for. So maintaining social connections is an important part. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. G. So treating yourself, going to lunch with a friend once in a while, making phone calls, FaceTime videos, even if we can't go out, are all great ways to stay connected with other people in our lives, sharing experiences and feelings with friends. So I know that people, sometimes do not feel comfortable disclosing to some people. However, we all possibly, if we look, can find one or two people that we can really share our experiences and feelings with, the days that we're frustrated, the days that we're not feeling great, just feeling comfortable talking to someone. And if there's someone out there who's saying, I don't want to let people know, I don't want to let anyone know, I would say that that's motivated by fear often, right? Either fear of being rejected, fear of being judged. I want to encourage you today to take a risk, right? Yes, sure, maybe people may not respond to you in the way that you prefer, that you need, but if you never reach out, you never know who can be a resource to you. So I want to encourage anyone who's reluctant to reach out to people to take a risk with one or two people and see if you can share and see if they can be people you can lean on as support in the journey, because the challenge is absolutely. And Dr. G's reminding me here, the mission of the organization is to create connections and provide resources. So my goal is definitely another resource that you can use or reach out to as a source of connections. And speaking to that, other caregivers who share similar experiences can also be a source of support as well, right? If someone is traveling the same journey in the same pathway, getting together with them and they, no one understands better, right, than someone who's walking the same path. And so joining support groups, providing a sense of community and understanding, maintaining open and honest communication with other caregivers, and then you can share tricks, share insights, share challenges, and share resources as well. So, and my goal, I mean, highlighted earlier today, this is one of the main missions of this organization. And that's right, and we all need validation, right? There's nothing, it feels good to say I'm experiencing XYZ today and someone else says, yeah, me too. It feels validating. You know that you're not losing it, you know that you're not terrible for feeling how you're feeling in the moment. And so sharing that with another person walking that journey is an important way to keep our mental health in a good space. Okay. All right. Okay. So all of this, again, all goes to the point of putting our own oxygen mask first. The more we're being intentional, purposefully scheduling these activities, the more we're supporting our own mental health, putting on our own oxygen mask first. And then we are better caregivers to the individuals we care for, and we're also better for it ourselves as well. Okay. Other points that have come up that are important that help us feel good and maintain a mental health is celebrating small victories. So, in the journey for individuals with ASD, there are milestones maybe that other people have met, and we're looking forward to just a small amount, of that milestone to reach. Let's take the time to celebrate it. So, if someone who's been looking at nonverbal or partially verbal, they learn to make a word. Let's celebrate it. Let's acknowledge it. Because for that person's personal journey, that's big. It could be a small thing to us observers, but for that person, making that progress is big for them. It's another step. It's a milestone for them. So learning to cheer them on, but also cheering ourselves on as co-journeyers in that process is important, because if we're going and just looking at what is not being done, well, they should be doing XYZ by now. That's more likely to bring us down. That's more likely to impact us in a negative way. There's a concept called the gap and the gain, and individuals who focus on the gap tend to be more sad, more depressed. Individuals who focus on the gain are more likely to feel better. And I'll explain that, because now I realize that maybe that's not very well understood, but there essentially the concept of the gap and the gain is where you are if you're trying to hit a milestone. And after you've taken 2 steps, if you then, so you're trying to go to mile 10, but you've done mile 1. And then if you say, oh my God, it's still 9 miles left, how awful, I have so long to go, that feels worse. But if you're like, oh wow, I'm 1 mile away from where I started, that brings cheer, that brings hope. And then, I've done 1 mile, that I can do another mile, and I can do another mile, and that keeps hope alive. So that's the concept of the gap and the gain. So keeping our mind on the gain, even no matter how small or how it appears small, allows us to continue to feel hopeful and celebrate and maintain our joy. And that does wonders for our mental health, so that we can continue on this journey along with our ward. And alongside that goes focusing on positive moments, and giving a generally more positive caregiving experience. I'm going to also highlight, as part of support, respite care. Dr. G, I don't know what the resources are here. I've only heard it talked about. I've actually never engaged a respite care organization before, but
Yeah,
I just thought go ahead.
for parents whose children in New Jersey anyway have children under the age of 21, they need to be connected with Perform Care, which is the Department of Children and Family Services. They have Perform Care is the organization that processes or provides resources. And what that really entails is that you get a caregiver or somebody that will relieve you as a caregiver for a set amount of time. And that's a benefit under the state. So for parents who are listening to me under the age of 21, please, please, please Google performcare.org. I think it's .com or .org. So now if you can drop it there and sign up, because it's a need. So thank you for including this in here. It's really important.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Because those breaks allows at least the caregiver time to recharge before continuing on the journey again. It's big work caring for another person in this way, and so taking breaks are also important and part of it. And the other piece, oh yeah, okay. So I see Miss Daddy said she has he or she has had one that has helped a lot. Okay, very good. Another point I wanted to bring that's helpful for maintaining mental health is understanding communication style of the individual that you care for. Again, as we've said, individuals with ASD are very unique. Each person has their own sets of needs, communication styles, and things like that. So taking the time to understand your person can reduce the friction that comes with miscommunication, poor communication, frustrations, and feeling upset. That comes with that when we're not communicating well. So, like, say if a person's in pain, and when they're in pain, they bang something. If you learn to understand that, I think it makes the journey smoother for both the individual and the caregiver as well, and so on and so forth. Okay. And last but not the least, right? So we've talked a lot about maintaining mental health. These are a lot of things that we can do on our own to maintain overall very good mental health and wellness space. But sometimes things proceed beyond things that we can do on our own. Sometimes we need professional help to help us. And I want to say, if you are, this is the like my opportunity to invite you not to be afraid to seek professional help. We know that there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of thoughts people have about seeking psychiatric help, for example. But maybe you do not have to start with a psychiatrist. Maybe you can start with a therapist. And because I know a lot of people worry about medications and what that could feel like, what that means. But maybe you don't even need to start there as a caregiver. Maybe it's a supportive therapist that you can reach out to really just hold your hand through the difficulties that are happening in the moment. And Dr. G's asked me to share some resources. I apologize, I haven't put one out, but a good place that you can begin to look for a therapist for yourself as a caregiver. I would put out Psychology Today online. I don't know if anyone is familiar with that, but Psychology Today online has a database of a lot of therapists in many states, actually. And there you can like stratify or select by your state, your location, your insurance, if you're looking for someone who's a network with insurance. So it's like, I think it's the biggest directory probably in the US of finding therapists independently. So by, putting your specific criteria in there, it will give you some options, and that's a good place to search. Your insurance database has therapists as well. We all know that those aren't always up to date, but it's definitely a place to start by looking at your insurance database online. And honestly, if you don't find someone, you can call them, because if you're insured, it is your insurance's responsibility to help you, find care. So, because even for myself, sometimes we'll get insurance. They'll call, oh, we have this person, they need a psychiatrist. Can you see them? So they do help people find someone. If you cannot find someone on your own, your insurance, call them and tell them what you need. They can look out for people that's on their network. And if they cannot find you someone on their network, you can convince them to pay someone who's private pay to cover that. I don't know if a lot of people know about that, but if they cannot, you pay for the insurance, and if they cannot find you someone to cover you, you can find an independent person and then have them do an individual arrangement to pay them for your care. So that's available. I want to put that out there. So apart from insurance, there's the state board societies also that you can look up for your specific location. So like the American Psychology Association, you can look that up. I do believe they maintain a database, and so that's for a lot of the therapies. And similar goes for psychiatry as well. We work hand in hand in the field. So those are some resources as well that you can look at for getting therapeutic help. And if sometimes you may need medication, and after you met your therapist, they will refer you to speak to a psychiatrist to consider one. And let me reassure you today, just because you see a psychiatrist doesn't mean you have to take meds. Many times you're meeting people for several sessions just to talk about options. And to do education and to get comfortable, know what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what your psychiatrist should be doing for you if you're meeting someone. And don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not ready right now. If you don't, if you don't feel like you're ready for medication, so you want to learn a bit more to get comfortable, you can definitely have those conversations before making a commitment. So I wanted to share that as well. And in oops, and in summary, I wanted to, I threw in some resources in here. Of course, my goal, who's hosting this conversation today, is a resource for families of people with autism. But also, there are other resources in New Jersey that I put here on this slide. So these are New Jersey local, Autism New Jersey, SPAN Parent Advocacy Network, New Jersey Development Division of Developmental Disabilities, and then there's also the Parents Advocacy Network. And there are some national resources here as well: Autism Society of America, Autism Speaks, NAA, so and CDC. These are all organizations that are resources both locally and nationally for individuals and families with autism. And that was it. Thank you for listening. I wanted to invite anyone who has questions. We'll
So,
open up for discussion now.
I'm sorry, can you go back 2 slides before the last one?
This one?
Okay, yes, thank you. That's good.
Okay. I have to
So Dr.
realize that I have
Bolanle,
the ad hyperlink. Ooh, nope, that's
yeah,
not
thank you so much
it.
for sharing this today. This is much needed. And for the folks who are in the Zoom room, well, I just need everybody to at least you can type it or say it out loud. What is one takeaway that you gain? Because I mean, as a teacher, I always want in there. I will start myself by saying that I think the intentionality about I'll have a lunch date with a friend. I mean, I have lunch dates I have dates at home all the time with my husband, but the point here is that we're both caregivers, and sometimes you just need to be able to speak to somebody else about non-autism. I think that's the other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight is that we spend so much time with each other talking about sometimes our issue that we also have to be very careful. We're not with people who just are doom and gloom the whole time, right? And so what I have found is also being around people who it's just the everyday chit chat. So that at least we are able to even just glean in the other things that is happening outside of our world. And that has seemed for me is a good balance because I need to have other friends who we just want to hang out. We just want to be that. And you said something earlier about the timing. Obviously, when we're in crisis mode, we're not saying that forget about the individual and just go and be sitting there in a corner meditating when the crisis happening, right? So the key thing here, and I think what I want to say is that taking self-care prevents sometimes some of those crises because our reaction time it becomes so crucial. You can identify when that child is starting to have certain issues because you are at the place of peace, so you can see it in advance. And so not giving yourself an opportunity to have that mental health can actually cause more harm. And that's one of the things that I've seen that I'm starting to pay as I'm aging now, I can say that. I'm starting to notice that the ability to multitask has gone down a lot more. And that's because I can sense when my body gets very tense. And that usually means movement. I need to get up and I need to move around and do nothing related to that. So that's my coping mechanism right now is starting to pay attention to my body and what's happening because when I wasn't doing that, I was breaking out into cold sores and, having viral illnesses and things like that. And it was because the stress was so much. I wasn't paying attention to the warning signs to my body physically. So now I know what those warning signs are over time because I started to take breaks. So that's my takeaway is just really making sure that I'm intentional about taking time to do the non-autism related stuff and do that basics. So I want to throw it out there. Who else, if you want to share some of the things that they are, and then if you want to comment, Dr. B.
Yes, thank you. No,
Yeah.
thank you for. Go ahead. Somebody was
Sorry. Yeah,
speaking.
no, thank you, Dr. G, for sharing that. Because I kind of had a question about what you just kind of clarified too, which is like even when choosing friends and like support systems that are going through the same things. I had met some people, and there was a particular friend who also had a child with autism, but it became more like negative. I realized like it was doing probably more harm for me than good. So just being intentional to like the kind of people, because as you're becoming hopeful and as you're wanting to celebrate the small things, you also don't want it to be like someone that's just always complaining, because that could also pull you in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then talking about like something I got from this is like, not being afraid to just like even open up to your bosses or your, people at the workplace. And that's something I haven't done, whether we're like young professionals as we're growing in our field, there's this kind of like fear of being looked at differently or not being able to do something because of like the challenges that we have in our personal life. But that's the reality of what we're living with, right? So just being transparent with that, I think it's helpful um to do so. Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for sharing that. And it's something that comes up a lot, right? And sometimes it comes from thinking, well, it's just me. And what I find often, so when sometimes when I'm taking care of people and I say, can you let your immediate supervisor know this is the situation? And they are first afraid, and then they share with someone, and then they find out that they're not the only one in that situation once they take the risk. It is a risk, no doubt, but sometimes we don't know, we don't find company, we don't find support unless we take that risk sometimes. And for a lot of people, it's liberating when they're like when they share and then they find out that there's someone else in that same space who's had similar challenges, and what that can mean is more support, more understanding. But I definitely do acknowledge and don't minimize the feeling of I'm taking a risk if I were to share this, but sometimes something positive comes out of taking that risk as well.
Yeah, awesome, Amarachi. I'm glad you said that. I remember my son is 20, I was going to be 23 very soon. And there was a period, and on this autism diagnosis, there's two valley, well, it's not really valley, it could be a valley moment or a peak moment. At the point where you first get the diagnosis, it's really crushing, right? Where I always say that it's almost like you have to bury that dream that you had when you first, before you were pregnant and you thought things were going to be rosy and you thought everything was going to be fine. You had this image of in your life, right? And now you get this diagnosis. That means you have to do more work. It doesn't mean that it's a terrible thing, just that the type of lifestyle you lead is a little different. You just approach things a lot more, very focused. I became more focused about learning and asking questions and advocacy and talking to teachers and talking to doctors. I asked more questions, right? Whereas before the diagnosis, I would just go as if, well, somebody told me that was good enough. So that was that period. And I figured it out. I worked it all out. I knew what it is. And then you got to puberty. Puberty was another segment where what you've put in place no longer worked. So this is where a lot of parents also find themselves, that their kids are in teenage years, and some of the things that they have constructed, the life they've constructed, they've made the adjustment. That doesn't work anymore. Your child goes from, and it doesn't even have to be because it's autism. It's anything. You go from their elementary school to middle school and to now to high school. High school, they don't need you anymore. They don't listen to you anymore. And so the life and what you've constructed is no longer functional. So you start to find yourself back at that same place again. So for some of us, we relive the experience again because things that you'd worked, they no longer worked. So I have had to learn that, and going back to what and the comment that was made earlier, I had to go and be transparent to my bosses. That was the biggest blessing, to say to them, I need to take some time off in between. So people hear me. You may think that I'm this superwoman walking around. No, I know when to be saying, I need some time off. I need to take a week or two to really figure and just have time to process. And I use that a lot with people that I talk to. I call it processing time. The time of processing and trying to reconfigure and identify that what I had in place no longer works. And really being okay with the fact that it doesn't work. So I need to do it different. So my bosses were very, very supportive and have been every place I've been. I work my tail off, don't mind. So when you're a hard worker, people support you. I want to say that. So if you're listening out there, people will support you because they want to keep you. So they will support you through your trauma
They'll
in that
make
way.
room.
So that would be what I will say to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just writing this when you were talking about, initially when you first get the diagnosis, and however it is described or how we've described it is mourning what was, right? I mean, when you're a parent, you have these dreams, you have these idea of what your child will be. And then when you're told this could be different, there's a period of mourning that comes with that, the loss of what was or what could have been. And that's a period that people go through. And I wonder if there's supports for that or validation. And I've heard about a lot of guilt for even feeling that way. Yet, it's a very normal feeling to process, like you said, until people transition again. And that happens at every transition point, is what I'm hearing you say as well.
Yeah. So, and I think that's really important that parents hearing this, and for the mental health component, there are going to be period of transitions. And even with children who are neurotypical, they're going to have transitional seasons. So it really being important to understand that it's coming and knowing what are the resources that are needed for that time, even if you don't need it yet. And that's why I mentioned earlier that our mission statement over time, it became very simple. We create connections and we provide resources so that you identify when those transition points are and where to go. And so these resources that you're sharing are very pivotal there, because I think it's really, really important that people know that they have a network within the church, within their town, within the school, within friends that you went to school with, that with those networks are so important. Some people are not going to be able to be a resource to you any longer because their time expires. Even friendships have the experience. Some friendships have some expiration dates, because if become toxic, you need to move on. And that really becomes important that we do that piece of it. So yeah, I know I don't want to monopolize it, but I thought just to add that comment about transitions there and points of knowing that will be really important.
Yeah. And what I'm doing right now, because I realized I didn't include the links for those resources, I'm clicking them so people can see the actual page on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see that Noelle, who's what intern, says her takeaway is how important it is to prioritize care for yourself in order to be able to care for others. I really like the example of oxygen mask on the plane. Yeah, I think that's always used. But I know that a lot of parents, and just because over the years of doing these support groups, there's a guilt associated with even taking time for yourself. You're just thinking, I just need to take care of that child, but over time, just do take a vacation. If it's 72 hours, 24 hours, go to another city, and by the way, it doesn't cost a lot of money to go to another city. Get in a car and drive.
Yeah, yeah.
You can do that,
Or even local.
and local,
Sometimes
yeah.
we do hotel get staycations
Vacations. It's a
in their
different
pool.
scenery. Yeah, it's important. So, if you're watching us out there and you're listening to this, we just want you to know that my goal is a resource, and we exist for this purpose. And our organization has grown over the years with my child and every aspect of his journey. We use that as a means. But one thing that has not stopped is that you, as a caregiver, give yourself a break, give yourself some credit. Don't be so hard on yourself. That's once again, I'm not the professional in that way here, but I'm the professional at N of one. And so
Yes.
I am able to, and taking care of your physical well-being is important. I want to say that, Doc, and maybe you want to comment about the importance of even physically how we look.
Do you mean just the appearance, physical appearance
Yes.
in itself, or
Yeah.
overall physical wellness? Absolutely. I mean, when you look in the mirror, when you work on your health from the vanity aspect, physical look, you can move better, you can be more agile, you're less tired. But also when you look in the mirror, and you like what stares you back, it feels good, and we cannot deny or underestimate the impact of that on our overall wellness when we like what looks back at us. So absolutely, physical health, physical appearance, working on ourselves in that way is very, very important. Absolutely.
Awesome. Janelle, you have
Oh,
your hand up?
Janelle.
Hello. I was
Hi.
gonna let it go. Thank you, Dr. G. Thank you, Dr. Bolande.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a great session. I was gonna let it go because you mentioned taking care of your physical well-being. I'm working on the other aspects of leaving my kids, because I've had a really bad, traumatizing experience with a caregiver when my daughter's shoulder was broken. So leaving my kids, yeah, it's really difficult with caregivers, knowing her personality. But I need to take that 24-hour staycation. I need to work on that Maybe it's just me at this point. But I wanted to share that you mentioned your health. I was referred to a nutritionist about 4 years ago. Sometimes one I had insurance for years, then there was a glitch in the insurance, but it cost $80 a month to speak with her, to talk with her. She does your body weight index and all of these good stuff. But
Mhm.
I've found over the years that it's one of the best $80 you can ever spend, because one of our approaches is your health, your diet is actually a reflection of your mind. It's actually psychological. So before she can even go to my weight and what I'm eating and all that, she starts to ask, how's your kids? What did you do this month? Telling me
Mhm.
about all these resources and places you can go for free and all these things. And then she comes to the diet, which is the last part of the consultation. She also believes that what well she doesn't believe, but she also promote what you have in your fridge, what you eat is what your kids are going to be eating 10 years from now.
Sure.
So it's so important to not just have a great diet, but to know that your kids are looking at you. And we have
Mhm.
conversations all the time about food. My kids can tell you what's healthy, what's not healthy. Sometimes it's embarrassing because they won't touch it, or they will tell you not to touch it. But taking care of your health, and I'm blessed to find her that she's so interested in the whole person. But it feels great. So if you can invest in a nutritionist or a dietitian, like a coach that can rally you along,
Mhm.
it's affordable too. So yeah, I've shared her number with a few people. I don't have it right now, but I can share the resource with Dr. G later.
Please. Thank you. And having that personal testimony of your experience with them, I'm sure is reassuring than someone having to go dig on their own online. So please share with everyone when you can. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, everybody. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm sure when you're putting the slides together, you're like, okay, how is this going to go? But I know that people have been blessed by what you shared, the conversation back and forth. I'm just walking away with boundaries. People, let's create those boundaries. I think that's one thing that folks don't really invest in, and they feel guilty. The fact that you didn't put boundaries is the reason why you end up allowing certain people in your space that
Mm,
actually affect your mental health.
mm,
So especially, so I don't fall into that category. I have no issues in saying no to people, especially if it's something that I don't think is good for me or for the person. But there are people who are people pleasers where they don't
mhm,
know how to say, I can't do that or I don't want to do that.
mhm,
So when you're caring for your loved one, especially with your children, we know that it could be persistent. I want to just highlight what she shared today, and the importance of creating boundaries, because that's one unique aspect that you brought in this talk that I've not often heard other people speak to. So
mhm.
thank you really for adding in there.
Thank
Dr. B is a great partner and supporter of my goals. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for saying
you.
yes to this assignment and coming and sharing. She talked about, she has private practice. So please, if you have any questions, you have folks that need her services, she's a supporter. So I want to highlight that, because that I always want to make sure we vet people who understand and will not take advantage of our community in any way. She didn't pay me to say that. I'm just commenting on that because that's really important. But she was very clear about resources are available online. Please access them, and you'll be blessed for doing that. Once again, this is not your last time, by the way. You'll come back. I'm sure there will be other topics that we can pull your expertise on, because I think that's really, really important. So before we round up, Senna, if you don't mind, sharing what's upcoming with my goal. Very soon. A big one is that there's a couple of things coming up in the month of April. So if you want to share that with us. You're muted.
Oh, there we go. That's a good place to start. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. All right.
While she's doing that, we are have a number of events coming up at the end of this month, I think, right? So Senna, there you
Yes.
go.
Okay, there we go. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Okay, so for the month of March, we have our social hour live that's coming up on March 23rd at 9:30 a.m. So I know one of the things we talked about today was taking the opportunity to socialize and, get to know other caregivers. And this is the perfect opportunity to do that. We grab brunch together at the Brookwood Cafe in Hamilton. So really encourage everyone who's looking to expand their network or spend some time, interacting with other caregivers to take advantage of that event. And then, of course, we have our empowerment moment with Dr. G. That's on the last Thursday of the month. So that'll be March 28th at 7 p.m. So we'll be streaming that on Facebook, or we encourage you to join us in the Zoom room. And the event that I'm most excited about is our Bowling for Autism event, which is one of our two big fundraisers for the year. So that'll be on April 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Majestic Lanes in Perth Amboy, Woodbridge area. Pre-registration is currently open. It's $20 per person, and something new we're doing this year is allowing people to register as a team. So you can register with up to 5 people, and you can also create your own fundraising page, so you can fundraise as a team. So encourage you to scan the QR code in the bottom right corner and get ready to have an exciting time bowling with us this April. All of our events are listed on our website. So if you're interested and excited to register, you can go there, and I'll also put the link to register for any of the events in the chat as well.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there a way that we can join, like, maybe I did, but I'm not sure. Is there a way that we can join like a mailing list and each event comes, or do we usually have to go to the website and register as it comes?
No, we currently have a mailing list. So if you want, you can message me your email, and then I can add you to our list. So every month at the first of the month, I try to be good about putting it out within the first few days. We send a list of all of our events that'll be upcoming, so you can keep up with what we have coming up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're watching on, and so send email to info@mygoalinc.org, info@mygoalinc.org. And I think you're able to get, once you get on our email list, you'll get all the upcoming events. We even include activities that are happening within the community, both with autism related and non-autism related. So these are ways that you can create your network. So remember, your strategy for enhancing your mental health is get intentional by making connections. So prepare yourself to at least meet one new person per month. That could be part of your future network. So that's what my personal ambition is. I meet people, and before they know it, I tell them they're part of my network. So we know people that way. So that would be a blessing. So remember, we exist to support families, and we do that by creating these connections. But more importantly, we want to ask you to help us promote the Bowling for Autism event. If you know companies that are willing to sponsor, the donations go in to support our grant program, which we didn't mention. But right now we have our grant opened from till April 30th. So you can apply. So if you're selected, we have a grant committee that does review all the grants and notification. So, I mean, over the years, I mean, we're on up to almost $200,000 that we've been able to give. And that's been because of generous supporters who donate and who come out for these events. So April 21st, we have the registrations open right now. So please share it among your friends, family, and really make My Goal your preferred cause. Remember, you can also, for birthdays, do a fundraiser on Facebook. Sometimes companies do match. So please help us to be able to help as many families as can. We're just a vehicle to help as many people. So get on board with us. And for those of you who are listening, I will be personally inviting you, because I want to see you there on April 21st on a Sunday afternoon. So thank you again, Dr. B, for being here. Really appreciate you. Thank you for the very insightful conversation that we had. We all had all takeaways. I'm going to take it and share. So Sana will be posting this live. Share with friends. There may be people who need to hear it, and this will save a life. And I believe that that's true. So on that note, thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic afternoon, y'all. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.